snapped over the head of Peyton Manning. A flag is down, and the ball's out of the back of the end zone. Good kick by Prater on a hop, and Percy Harvin gets free. Percy Harvin inside the 30. He's going to go. Touchdown, Seattle. He's hit 7 different receivers in that pass. What a catch! Touchdown! Unbelievable! The first world championship in franchise history. 43-8. The Seahawks are world champs.
Seattle fans had waited 38 long years for this victory. There are those who credit great coaching, others incredible team effort, or spectacular individual heroics. But the truth is, this miraculous Super Bowl might never have happened. In fact, the team might not even exist, if not for the efforts of a single dedicated fan and the community that rallied with him. This is his story, how one fan did everything he could to save what he loved. To talk about the 12s, you're really talking about Seattle fans in general. You really have to look back at Seattle sports history to really appreciate how much winning hadn't happened around here. Seattle's first title was over a century ago, when the Seattle Metropolitans won the Stanley Cup back in 1917. The Sonics won their first and only NBA championship in 1979, and 2 new sports franchises were born, the Seahawks in '76 and the Mariners in '77. The Kingdome was erected in 1976 and became home for both those teams. In the early years, the Seahawks, and the M's for that matter, were pretty bad, but at least they were entertaining. In 1983, Chuck Knox became the Seahawks head coach and led them to their first playoff appearance. They beat the Broncos in the wild card, upset the Dolphins in Miami in the divisional, but lost to the LA Raiders, who went on to win the Super Bowl. In 1987, the Seahawks lost to the Houston Oilers in an overtime wild card thriller. In 1988, they lost to the Bengals in the divisional round. In 1992, they went 2-12 with one of the worst offenses in history, overshadowing one of the best defenses in Seahawks history. In 94-95, the Sonics suffered back-to-back first-round playoff losses to the Nuggets and the Lakers. In 95, the Mariners had their magical playoff season, beating the Yankees in the division series, only to lose the championship series to the Indians. In 96, the Sonics made it to the NBA Finals, only to lose to MJ and the Bulls. In 96, Ken Behring tried to move the Seahawks. And in 1997, Paul Allen, with a little help from some friends, kept them in Seattle. More on this later. In '99, Mike Holmgren became the head coach of the Seahawks and brought new hope to the franchise. They made their first playoff appearance in over a decade, only to lose to the Dolphins in the wild card, the last game to be played in the Kingdome. In March of 2000, the Kingdome was blown up. In 2001, the Mariners blew up by winning a record 116 games, beating the Indians in the divisional round, only to lose to the Yankees in the championship series. In 2003, the Hawks lost to the Packers in the wild card. In 2004, the Hawks lost to the Rams in the wild card. In 2004 and 2010, the Seattle Storm won 2 championships, but for some reason, the national media seems to overlook this. In 2005, the Seahawks made it to their first Super Bowl, only to lose to the Steelers and the refs. In 2006, the Seahawks beat the Cowboys in the wild card, but lost to the Bears in the divisional. In 2007, the Hawks beat the Redskins in the wild card, but lost to the Packers in the divisional. 2008-2009 might possibly be the worst year in Seattle sports history. The Huskies went 0-12. Holmgren closed out his decade-long coaching stint, going 4-12, his worst record with the Hawks. And the Sonics were stolen from us. In 2010, Pete Carroll became the new head coach of the Seahawks. They became the first team to make the playoffs with a losing record. They beat the Saints in the wild card, and the Beastquake was born. They then lost to the Chicago Bears in the divisional. In 2012, the Seahawks won their first playoff road game since 1983, beating the Redskins in the wild card, only to lose a heartbreaker in Atlanta in the final seconds of the divisional round. Given our history, I'm sure you can understand why that first Super Bowl victory meant so much to the city of Seattle. So let's go back to the beginning, where our journey with Mark Collins began. It was 1976 when the Seattle Seahawks made their NFL debut in the brand new Kingdome. Mark Collins, a self-employed contractor, was a fan from day one.
I was always a football guy. I was always a Seahawks guy. I never missed a home game, and I never missed an away game, on TV. I think it was pretty rambunctious from day one. It was just fun. You bled blue and green, win, lose, or draw, and more times than not, we lost.
I've been a fan since 1976, when the Nordstrom family owned the team. when it was a family, it really was. And there was a great vibe and a great energy around the team. And we had Jim Zorn, number 10, left-handed, Cal Poly, elusive. We had Steve Largent, Hall of Fame guy.
Even though we lost most of the games, the fans, they were great fans in the Kingdom. You know, I mean, we had a crazy place.
It was just that sense of pride in the fan base that we were known around the league. They're just crazy up there. The noise, you know, the fact that we created so much noise in that facility. We actually stopped an Atlanta Falcons game for 10 minutes. I think we had 2 or 3 waves going at the time, and then they came on the loudspeakers. We're gonna penalize the crowd if you don't stop. Well, all that did, all of a sudden 2 more waves pop up. It's like, you know, bring it on. Are you gonna penalize the crowd? Come on. That just gave you, as a fan, a sense of pride. And because of that, the Seahawks organization retired the 12.
A high point came for the Seahawks in 1983 when they beat the Miami Dolphins in the AFC Divisional Playoffs. But 5 years later, the Nordstroms sold the Seahawks to California land developer Ken Behring, and things began to change. It was 1995. The Seahawks were a losing team and the fan base had dwindled. Rumors about owner Ken Behring moving the Seahawks to California began swirling, and it didn't sit well with Seahawk fans.
People thought of Behring as a buffoon. Nobody took him seriously. And yet, you know, when he talked about that, you know, you had to remember, well, he is the owner.
I was just an everyday contractor back then, but at some point in December, one more rumor came out. Well, Ken Behring wants to move the team. He's still denying it. At that point, something snapped in my head. I'm in my office and I started typing. I'm starting Save Our Seahawks. I'm going to be your worst enemy. I'm going to fight you all the way. This is our team. This was awarded to the city of Seattle, and we're not going to let you take it.
That Behring, he put his arm around me and promised me, Mama Blue, I will never take your team out of town. Well, he's a liar, because he sure tried to do it.
This man who looked like Fred Flintstone.
I'm announcing today that the NFL franchise we purchased in 1988 is leaving Seattle.
Why do you want to move the team? And he says, I'm afraid of earthquakes. So he's going to move to Southern California. Brilliant.
Well, I cried, I don't know for how many days, and I'm around the house like a maniac. They can't, you know, I was going into one of my modes. That can't happen, that can't happen.
That's our football team. That's our identity.
He was such a pompous ass. Pardon my French, you don't have to put that in, but he was a pompous ass.
At that point, I knew my life had changed. Now I had to, you know, shit or get off the pot. You know, unfortunately, like, oh no, now what happens?
Mark contacted Steve Berman, one of the most successful attorneys in the state, and filed a class action lawsuit against Behring on behalf of the fans. Suddenly, the Seattle construction contractor found himself in the middle of a media frenzy.
I saw Mark on a TV news show, Northwest Cable News.
That was the first time I ever had a camera in my face. I'd never been on live TV in my life.
Mark Collins is spearheading this group and the effort, and he joins us right now. Thanks for being here, Mark. We appreciate it.
Thank you. They set me in this chair. There's a camera over here. There's a monitor down here, and I've got this thing in my ear. And this guy is talking in my ear because I'm looking at the monitor, and he says, look at the camera. So I'm like, you know, like deer in the headlights, like, we're not in Kansas anymore. I'm just a fan. But somebody's got to stick up for us.
And I thought to myself, that white boy needs some help.
Mark teamed up with friend Dean Olsby, and together they frantically set up Save Our Seahawks.
I was ticked off, really ticked that, you know, this guy saying that he was going to move our team, a team that was awarded to the state of Washington and in our eyes, the Pacific Northwest. And I think that was a rallying cry that, you know, really resonated with people. We were getting calls almost immediately because Mark looked genius because he predicted something that was now happening. We quickly had to form our office. We really just wanted to get the signs made, the shirts made. Lo and behold, 2 days later, we're talking with Mick down there at FX Macquarie, and we're saying, hey, would you be interested in helping host a Save Our Seahawks rally?
I'm Mick McHugh, and I'm the proprietor of FX Macquarie.
And that's where he met diehard supporters like Mama Blue.
When I met him, he said his name's Mark Collins, and I said, oh, you must be Tom's brother. I thought he was a drink. And wanted to know if I wanted to join in. And, well, yeah, I was the president of the Booster Club for 10 years, so I could get a lot of people to go out and stand on the corners. We picketed, we did everything.
There's a couple thousand fans out there, and so no social media, no Instagram, no Facebook, just Dean and Mark faxing and word of mouth.
I walked in and introduced myself to Mark. And I said, what am I supposed to do, man? And he said, I don't know, follow me. And I've been following him ever since.
I'd like Mark to come up from Save Our Seahawks.
I did this not only because I'm a fan, but also the economic benefit to this state.
It's interesting because we are such dynamically different personalities, and yet we're friends. This man is a drummer in a country western band. You got to know and understand something. It's been my experience in every nightclub I've ever been. Country western music on the jukebox automatically Negro-proofs the premises. So I want you to imagine this white dude, cowboy hat, who I saw on TV, is a drummer in a country band. There's nothing about me that digs country music, yet we became friends. Our bond, obviously our common bond, was A, the love of our football team, and the fact that B, we're both Seattle guys, man. There's something about being from here before everybody moved here. I still remember Gary Locke. He was at that time the county executive. He was on a table at FX McCrory. He was screaming. He was like, I mean, he was shaking his fist and just enraged at the possibility we might lose his team. And people came out, the groundswell of people around the front of FX McCrory's, where you could still see the Kingdom. That was when I met Jenny.
Jenny was also a diehard Seahawks fan who also turned out to be the love of his life.
She, like him, a Ryball Seahawk fan.
She was wonderful. She was the sweetest. Oh my God, I love that girl.
I nicknamed her Redhead. Beautiful woman. Jenny Red Collins, I called her.
So beautiful inside and out.
You talk about polar opposites. Mark is very quick to jump into a conversation and let things know how he feels. And Jen was very, very soft-spoken, very, very pretty lady, and she was a really good country western dancer.
A lot of spunk, like Mark. I think that's why they were so incredibly probably attracted to each other, because she'd tell you exactly what was on her mind. Like Mark, both of them subtle as a blowtorch.
We were still boyfriend, girlfriend, and I was just a devout bachelor at the time. She was a big part of Save Our Seahawks early on.
She was an integral part of all of that. She was his back and his support, and I think she obviously believed the Save Our Seahawks movement.
She wanted to support Mark. I think she knew he was onto something here. We were getting calls from New Jersey, New York, Minnesota, Montana, people from all over the United States and outside of the United States wanting to know where they could send a check and to get a t-shirt and what they could do, and it was overwhelming. I mean, we had no idea the amount of support the Hawks had. It was amazing to see.
To have any chance of saving the Seahawks, Mark knew he had to keep the Seahawks in the public's eye, no matter what.
Of course, the guys joining me here, to your far left, to my far right, it's Dean Olsby from Save Our Seahawks, and the gentleman right here closest to you in the kind of Seahawks green.
Hey,
that's close enough.
It works.
That's Mark Collins. Now, what are your roles? Are you like the president, Mark, or chief executive officer of Save Our Seahawks?
We're the founders of Save Our Seahawks, and the two of us together have tried to facilitate the fans and get the energy up, obviously, to keep the public attention on this issue.
We had meetings at Gary Locke's office and being told, hey, you do this, do that, or this is what we think you should do, but if you basically being told behind closed doors, if you get in trouble, we don't know who you are, we never talk to you.
He's as hard-headed an individual as I've ever met.
I mean, he started calling the show. He was a pest. He would call the show all the time. And at first it was like, oh yeah, we gotta have this guy on. He's talking about saving the Seahawks. And then he would call again. And then he would call again.
The more people tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna go out and prove you wrong. I hate being told no, especially as something I think is achievable.
He knew from the start that I have got to keep this out in front of people. I have got to be the grassroots side of this effort.
I wasn't scripted. Things would come out of my mouth that the media would take and run with it. So on February 7th of '96,
we get up at 8 o'clock and head downtown Seattle.
With Steve Berman's office.
Our Save Our Seahawks shirts, our Save Our Seahawks signs, we're walking down.
And we filed the class action lawsuit at King County Courthouse on behalf of the fans.
People are honking and yelling, Save Our Seahawks! And we're laughing, and little did we know, we had no idea what was gonna be a couple minutes ahead of us. We get in that elevator with Steve Berman, and he said, okay, we're gonna go upstairs. And
the elevators open up to a sea of media people.
And there is 8 cameras in our faces. You talk about the ultimate rookies in regards to dealing with the media, that would be Mark and Dean.
And I looked at the lawyers, I said, well, you guys better go say something. He says, it's your baby, dude.
They wanted the story, and they were gonna get it.
One of the reporters asked me, what are you gonna do? And I go, Well, we're going to circle the wagons. And a couple days later, this political cartoon comes out. Gary Locke and everybody, you got the Kingdom and us all circling with the covered wagons and whatnot.
He's the one that put it out there. He's the one that got everybody organized. And, we had all the, local politicians involved in it. And, it takes somebody like that.
In mid-March, Behring packed up the trucks and moved the team to Los Angeles.
And I'm freaking out. And I'm like, practice is done. We got to do something, and
we needed to get on a plane and we needed to get down there.
Mark and Dean rushed down to LA and teamed up with the Southern Cal Seahawkers and staged a protest at their practice facility.
We went in the middle of the night and took Save Our Seahawks posters, palm tree, anything that was vertical, we affixed one. So every player that came in there that next morning had to see all these Save Our Seahawks things.
And so there must have been 50 or 75 Save Our Seahawks up in the trees, on the ground. We had to put a shirt out there. As they were driving through, there was absolutely no way that they could miss that Save Our Seahawks had arrived in Los Angeles.
We had the cameras down there, the TV stations. The media guy is asking me, what are you going to do after you're done picketing day? And I looked right in the camera and go, we're going to Disneyland. We did go to Disneyland with our Save Our Seahawks jerseys on.
The next day, the NFL ordered the Seahawks back to Seattle, or Behring would face hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. The Seahawks returned, but the fight to keep the pressure on Behring to sell and to find a new owner raged on. Even Paul Allen wasn't interested in buying the team in the beginning.
I contacted Paul Allen's office at length on more than one occasion, and just point blank, we are not interested. You got to look elsewhere.
And maybe the best thing about Mark is that I don't know that he has an ounce of cynicism in his body. He believed in this thing from the start and thought, this is going to happen. And when everyone told him no, he kept believing in it. That's a lot of what made him special. He just refused to buy in, because from my standpoint, I was cynical. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to happen.
And he had good reason to be cynical. To this point, no city had been successful at stopping a team from leaving.
The team wasn't up for sale, number one. Ken Behring didn't say, well, I'm going to sell the team. We had to put the pressure on him through lawsuits. We had a lawsuit. King County had a lawsuit.
Mark Collins isn't going to buy this team. Who's going to buy this team and make it happen? So it was very easy to dismiss him, except he's an impossible force to dismiss. He was like a bee at a picnic, man. He would not give up.
We kept it in the public's eye, and that helped bring Paul Allen to the table.
On April 20th, Paul Allen announced that he was purchasing an option to buy the Seahawks.
When Mr. Allen stepped in and made that move, that changed everything. That made me think, okay, there's a chance now this is going to happen.
This cat, in my mind, is Mr. Greater Seattle. That would be Paul Allen, and we are so lucky to have this cat.
Oh, we were ecstatic. We're now seeing there's maybe a light at the end of the tunnel.
But that tunnel still meant 14 more months of campaigning ahead of them. For Dean, that was simply more than he could handle.
We realized at that time that this is a much longer fight. We had 14 more months.
I got, a family at home. I got a lot of stuff going on. I feel like, man, we are in the best hands that we could possibly be in. So for Dean, I've got to take a little bit of a step back here.
He just let it to be known that I can't do this for another 14 months. So I was kind of left on a ship by myself to fight for the fans. I mean, even though, Paul Allen came into the equation, we still needed to have some kind of a voice for the fans.
20 plus years later, here we are, we're pals, and still the love for the Mariners and Seahawks and Huskies and all that good stuff, so it all worked out.
For the next 14 months, Mark put his life on hold to reach the end of that tunnel.
We had to come up with not only the stadium design, we had to come up with a funding package, and we had 14 months to do it. We had to get the legislature to allow us to have a vote. The fight had just begun at that point. We got the player. Let's keep him in the game.
Man, a bunch of work to be done because we had to sell that stadium.
There were 3 possible stadium options: renovate the Kingdome, renovate Husky Stadium, or build an entirely new stadium. One option quickly disappeared.
Well, Paul Allen has given up on ideas for Husky Stadium. The Microsoft co-founder holds an option to buy the Seahawks. He was proposing refurbishment of the UW Stadium for NFL play, but neighborhood opposition won out. KIRO's Lisa Hughes explains.
Just days ago, Paul Allen dangled millions in front of the university to improve traffic and parking. He wanted the Seahawks to compete in Husky Stadium. and he was willing to subsidize the improvements to reduce the impact the team might have on the campus and surrounding neighborhoods. Allen has withdrawn his request. In a letter to UW President Richard McCormick, Allen says Husky Stadium is no longer an option. Hundreds of residents who live near the stadium sounded off early, making it clear Allen's idea would not earn their support. Allen met with McCormick earlier this week. The school president reportedly told Allen the Husky Stadium proposal would not earn his support. With Husky Stadium out of the picture, Paul Allen's options are more limited than ever. From the perspective of his football organization, perhaps the only viable option left is the demolition of the Kingdome and the construction of a new stadium, an option that right now is getting little support, if any, from the county.
Renovate the Kingdome or build a new stadium. Mark was determined to make sure the choice would be decided by the people.
You know, I think it's a travesty, if the voters of this state don't get a chance to vote on this.
Seahawks fans argued that lawmakers need to give the people a chance to vote on the plan.
Just give us a chance to vote on this. This is a good package, it's a fair package, and we have no problem with it. We're the ones paying for it.
And I want everyone in this place to go home tonight, to call your representatives and say, vote to let us vote in June. We'll have this done on hopefully June 17th. We'll have a new owner in Paul Allen.
Like Save Our Seahawks founder Mark Collins have volunteered thousands of hours to keep the Hawks from flying out of Seattle. And now that the fate of the team is in the hands of voters, they say they're not about to drop the ball. An aggressive campaign to win votes to fund an open-air stadium and exhibition hall to keep the Hawks in Seattle is already underway. But the opposition is also hard at work. Citizens for more important things are speaking out to save the dome from demolition.
The citizens of the state of Washington are not going to vote to tear down this fine facility. It's one of the best facilities in the United States for sports, for conventions, and the people of the state are too smart to vote to destroy this facility.
But without a new stadium, prospective buyer Paul Allen says he won't buy the team.
Some of the players don't like to play on artificial turf. They want to play on natural grass.
The issue is really, what's a proper use of public funds.
Great communities can have professional sports franchises and have good education and good services. Wayne knows as well as I do, the Seahawks more than any franchise probably in this community, because of the number of guys involved, have more guys involved in charity work, in education work, working with kids and trying to give back to the community. So there are a lot of intangible benefits that you may not see to having a pro sports team in your community.
Now here comes Paul Allen wanting tax money to build an NFL stadium, to pay for half of an NFL stadium for a team that people still don't care about. This is going to be hard to win the people over. And that's where Mark and his group did such a great job again of making sure that the dyed-in-the-wool Seahawk fans, the grassroots, like, you have got to come vote on this because it's going to be closer than everybody thinks.
I found out through my own research that a good majority of sports fans were not even registered voters. So we're out, we're going to sports bars, we're going around the state, we're trying to create some synergy around the team. We're bringing Seagulls, we're bringing ex-player, alumni players out. Sometimes we have current players. We had Max Strong come to a couple of events.
I went down to Olympia dressed as Mama Blue with my wig, with all my stuff on. You guys let the Hawks leave town. I said, you're going to lose a lot of revenue. The Seahawks bring in more revenue in 10 games than both the Sonics and Mariners combined. And they looked at me, well, she dresses funny, but she talks pretty good.
Keep our team here and to have this gorgeous state-of-the-art football stadium. So we went around the state. Mark, there was a bunch of us in the Seahawk Winnebago, all of the state.
It was pretty crazy going like Eastern Washington. Really, I hate to say this, but they could care less, if we had a stadium. They didn't want to waste the money. They didn't want to put any money into it, and they didn't want their taxes going there. They marched against us as much as we marched for it.
Campaigns are based on confusion. If you can confuse a voter, they're likely going to vote against something. So that was a lot of what we had to go up against. But it was still a battle because you had the opposition. You had the Chris Van Dykes and the Citizens for More Important Things that are stirring the pot by giving false information out there.
We had a couple of locally televised, like town hall type deals, and you don't want to try to out-talk Mark Collins. When he's fired up about something, he can talk a cat off a fish truck.
First, we have Chris Van Dyke from the group Citizens for More Important Things, and also Mark Collins from Save Our Seahawks. Mark, first of all, do you think that people will come around, and why do you think they should?
Well, first of all, I think they will come around. I think we're actually encouraged by these first polls. I think once we get the proper information and the facts out there, I think they will come around, yes.
Our job is simply to remind people that the sports people didn't want to pay for the stadium. Why should everybody else? Our poll indicates the no vote on the Seahawks stadium, and this was done about 6 weeks ago, at 66.5%.
Mark, why should people who don't care about the Seahawks or care about football vote yes for this?
This is a chance for for the whole community in the entire state, to step forward and look to the future and, go right into the 21st century with some great vision. We're not asking for new taxes. It's just an extension.
The arguments for the stadium don't make sense.
I think they do make sense. It's predominantly user tax. The hotel industry is behind this 100% because they know they're going to lose more by losing this team.
The sports fans get on the phone and they say, give them anything they want because we don't want them to leave town. We cannot do this anymore.
You're kicking the Mariners out and the Seahawks out?
No, I'm calling their bluff. They would be...
Maggie, give me a minute here.
They would be crazy to leave this town.
Maggie, you're hogging the mic. The city of Seattle spent $40 million on the Opera House, holds 2,500 seats. We didn't get to vote on that. I don't go to the Opera, but I support it because it's good for our community. I mean, the Seahawks are good for our community, and they bring in a lot more money than our Opera. Gives you national exposure.
They don't.
Hey, I have no problem. We need to come to the table here with open minds.
He loves the good cop, bad cop. We gave each other that label. He can play bad cop with the best of them. I'm always good cop. I'm black. I don't want to get tased. You understand what I'm saying?
Let's cut to the chase here. The issue is players' salary.
Why is that an issue? You're blaming the players for the financial debt of the kingdom. You're blaming the players for the debt.
How
can you blame the players for the debt?
Because
that is just absolutely ridiculous.
The election was swiftly approaching, and Mark, having sacrificed everything he had, knew it was an all-or-nothing scenario.
I was living on credit lines, credit cards, whatever it means. I had no income because I really wasn't working. I mean, this was a full-time job, and at the end of Save Our Seahawks, I had a debt of over $100,000 that I'd run up doing this campaign. Nobody asked me to do it. It was my own free will. I mean, somebody had asked me before, did I ask the Seahawks to pay me back or Paul Allen to pay me back? No, I didn't, because it wasn't something like they didn't ask me to do it. So I didn't figure it was their problem, So after Save Our Seahawks, that's when I'd put a mortgage on my house to pay off the debt that I'd run up doing Save Our Seahawks. 2 or 3 weeks before the election, I had this gut feeling we're going to lose. I was scared to death that we were going to lose that thing, because had we lost it, more than likely Paul would have walked away.
When I said yes to help save the Seahawks, I meant that I do my part in building something for the future, personally and financially. If you vote yes, I'll do what it takes to make the new stadium and exhibition center a success. I stand by that commitment. But if you say no, that means no for me too, because I'm not going to do this without you. When I said that you'll have the final say, I meant it. Together, we can leave something for future generations.
This election will come down to a photo finish.
Yeah, I was very nervous. We were all nervous down there at FX.
The early results came back. We were down bad.
Spokane County, 63% of the people rejecting the new stadium.
I'm thinking, what am I going to do now? I said I'm going to save the Seahawks. I don't have a plan B.
The tallies would come in. They'd tell us the votes and how many, and it was so close.
Here are the very latest statewide figures, 50-50.
It wasn't until later in the evening when it started to look like things were going to turn our way.
I'm very optimistic at this point.
It is winning with 90% of the votes counted, 51 to 49%.
The stadium initiative had passed.
Oh my gosh, that night it was like heaven. It was unreal. It was like, we did it.
I have an incredible team of people worked on this and made it happen.
And Paul Allen, bless his heart, you know, he was over there at the train station playing his guitar and had people riled up.
It's the only time in my life I've ever seen him play guitar, and it was fun.
It passed by less than 1%. It was very, very tight. People say all the time, you saved the Seahawks. To this day, I'm going to tell you, you know, I didn't save the Seahawks. Paul Allen saved the Seahawks for Seattle. He's the guy that wrote the check. But we as fans kept it in the public eye. I was relieved, Jenny was relieved. So I finally get my boyfriend back, you know. This thing is over. She wore me out. She wore me out. I never wanted to get married, but she wore me out. We got married on December 20th, 2001.
It was a time of relief, joy, and celebration for Mark, Jenny, and the entire Seahawks community. The new Seahawks Stadium opened on July 28, 2002. Mark and various members of the Save Our Seahawks team were on the field for the inaugural ceremony. Unfortunately, for Mark and Jenny, the celebration didn't last long.
In the spring of 2004, at the young age of 34, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. She had this positive attitude, and she wasn't going to let anything beat her, you know, mentally. She was doing chemo once a week. She was doing radiation 5 days a week. And they were trying to get it out of her lymph nodes. And if they would have got it out of the lymph nodes right out of the gate, then they could have just removed the lung, and she'd probably still be with us today. She fought a fight. She's bound and determined. I'm going to beat this thing. I'm going to beat this thing. But I watched what was a drop-dead, gorgeous woman that not only loved me to death, but she loved her sport. She loved her Seahawks. She loved everything. She was not going to let this thing in cancer beat her. Even though she may have lost the battle physically, she did not lose the battle mentally.
Bless her heart, you know. It was a pretty tragic thing, but you know, she was just beautiful. She was just awesome. I just loved her. We had so much fun. What more could you ask for? I think he found, you know, the love of his life, and I know he'll just never find anybody like Jenny, but they were a beautiful couple and sincere, heartwarming. They just had the best of life, you know, and it makes me sad because I just think, doggone it, some things aren't fair in life, you know what I mean? And then fair is not it's a four-letter word, but sometimes it's not a nice one.
Mark's a pest, and if being a pest could cure cancer, Mark Collins would be the most famous man in the world because he would have cured cancer, because as soon as Jenny was diagnosed, he starts, and again, he's calling the station, hey, we're having a fundraiser, we're doing this, we're doing it. He wouldn't give up. You know, this time he was fighting something that he couldn't beat. But if being relentless and being a pest could have beaten it, I'd have bet on him every single day of the week.
I know it was painful. I know he was in a lot of pain about it, and he had to suck it up and keep going in his life. But I don't know if he'll find anybody else in his life, because I think that there's a part of him that doesn't think anybody will ever replace her. That's just my opinion. And I'm somebody who knew her, and I know him. And let's just say, as his male friend, one dog always knows another dog's habits. There ain't nothing that hurts like knowing somebody's not gonna pick the phone up when you call them or answer the door when you ring the doorbell. That's the ultimate hurt.
He lost a part of him. He carries her with him, I think, to this day. Emotionally, physically, just he's got her on his mind, and he's also really kind of carried that torch for his giving back, for his charity, and what he believes in giving back to different, you know, whether it's American Heart Association, cancer, whatever it might be. I think that's just escalated.
The last game that she got to see at the Seahawks was her 36th birthday, and it was January 22nd of 2006, and that was the game that took us to our first Super Bowl and against the Pittsburgh Steelers. She got to witness it only because we had friends that had a suite, and they put her in the suite. Doctor didn't want to go, blood counts were too low.
The Seahawks gave Mark and Jenny 2 tickets to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, due to her condition, they could not attend it. Instead, they sold the tickets and put the money towards medical expenses and watched the game from their favorite rally spot, FX McCrory's. Jenny passed away on September 11, 2006. Mark and the Seahawks held a memorial service for her at the new stadium. Mark vowed he would someday take her to the game she missed.
I still have her Seahawk coat, and I wear it. The game that sent us to Super Bowl 48, and I remember sitting in the stands, and I'm wearing her coat, and I'm looking up. It's that last couple minutes, and the San Francisco 49ers are driving.
He's got Crabtree, and Crabtree is down inside the 30 to the 29.
And I looked and I said, girlfriend, if you got anything left, bring it now, because I need you. And it wasn't less than 30 seconds later that Richard Sherman tipped that pass and sent us to the Super Bowl.
Picked off! This game is over!
So now the emotions are overwhelming. And one of the first thoughts that came to me is, I get to take Jenny to the Super Bowl. And I took her coat. And that's, talk about fulfilling a bucket list, and maybe not a verbal promise, but an emotional promise, because she didn't get to go to the other one. And now she gets to go.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not the one that saved the Seahawks. Paul Allen, best owner in all professional sports as far as I'm concerned, he's the one that saved the Seahawks. I just helped facilitate that, and I was able to be a voice for the fans when the fans needed it.
Mark, we loved your story, and so did a New York Times best-selling author. We've got Debbie McComber, who's widely renowned in Seattle as well. She actually has a big surprise for you. You have no idea.
Our family wants to give you a ticket in the 100 level on the 40-yard line. So here you go, Mark.
Wow.
Are you getting chills right now? What do you think about all this, Mark?
I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps. This is my wife's coat that I wear to every game, and wow.
I had an awesome seat at that Super Bowl, and you got to take her coat there. And to me, that was, she was there the whole time, rooting them on. I think she was there at the champ game. She might have been there helping Richard Sherman. A lot of people aren't going to believe that, but if I want to believe it and I want to think it, I guess that's my prerogative.
If in a person's life they can have a bright torch they carry for 2 passionate things, and he carried that torch for the Seahawks, and then he carried that torch for Jenny, and very similar. He's carrying the torch for the Seahawks against kind of a wave of cynicism and negativity, and then anybody who's tried to fight cancer knows, man, that's a brutal bitch of a fight, and he wouldn't quit. I'm sure Jenny's last breath was being drawn, and Mark was still like, nope, we're gonna find a way to beat this, because that's just how he is. I think that's why he was such a perfect guy for this cause, because he wasn't coming from any place other than, look, we can't let this team go. This is too much fun having an NFL team here. It's too important to our history.
We wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for Mark Collins. I wouldn't even be talking to you, because there would be no reason to. There wouldn't be a team. His heart was there, and he went into pretty big bucks in his house and everything to do whatever he did, and his heart was there too, and he loved the Hawks, and he just stepped up to the plate, and the rest of us fell in, and we couldn't have done it without him.
The catalyst, the guy who said first and foremost, this ain't happening, was Mark Collins. Because you got to have somebody who starts it. Guess what? When people riot, it ain't a bunch of people who all get together and go, you know what, man? Let's start a riot. You get one person who says, you know what? And then everybody else goes, wait a minute. Next thing you know, it's showering rocks because everybody's throwing them. But somebody's got to pick the first rock up. Mark picked the first rock up.
We will never, ever forget what you did.
Rolling in. Feel the chill of a cold October wind. We did everything together, but I'm as lost as I can be. Now that you're gone, what do I do with me? You were my passion, my love, my life. You were the one thing I did right. And I feel like I've been cheated of all my hopes and dreams. Now that you're gone, what do I do?